AWS Community Day Vancouver presents the GenAI Q&A Vibe Lounge, hosted by Krug.
Hey, what's up, Internet? It's Kris Krug, and I'm back here at AWS Community Days, and I'm here with Gabriel. Gabriel just came off the stage from giving the main opening keynote here. Why don't you just introduce yourself to the Internet and say hello?
Hey, I'm Gabriel. I'm a senior generative AI solutions architect at AWS. I'm a passionate technologist at heart.
All right, man. Well, what were you up there talking about exactly today?
Today, we had fun introducing Anthropic and some of the world's best AI models offered by Amazon on a service called AWS Bedrock.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm really excited to have you in this chair, actually, because, I do research about everybody that I come and talk to, and you're not that easy guy to track down on the internet, but I was able to find your LinkedIn, and you've had a pretty cool career. You've worked at Apple and now at AWS, and you get to work on the Anthropic job at AWS, right? So tell me what that's all about.
Yeah, first to your comment around being hard to find on the internet, I think the first thing to realize is how important your data is. And so I'm very protective and careful of the data that I put out because this is the type of data that can be leveraged to train a large language model. My role at AWS
In that case, you probably really took it as a compliment then when I'm like, you're hard to find on the internet. You're like, I am.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice, man. Well, congratulations.
I work at AWS as a solutions architect with Anthropic. What that really means is I help them figure out how do we go to market together. Mm-hmm. They launch some amazing models, some amazing technologies, and we just look at getting feedback from our customers and from our users and just improving the experience for everyone. And a huge chunk of it is training and enablement, teaching people how to use these models.
Teaching humans how to use, training humans.
Training humans.
Not training models.
Training humans,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that some people who ask questions from the audience were interested in how they could use things like Anthropic, Claude, whatever, to train their own models.
Yeah, it's an ongoing topic. I think the answer I gave to the audience was make sure that it's within the guidelines of the model provider. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely a technique.
That's a TOS violation in some cases, huh?
That's exactly it.
Very interesting.
But it's definitely a technique that's used quite often, which is essentially you take a smarter model, a teacher model, to train a student model.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that when people are talking about future things right now. They're talking about, big models training small models and us mostly interacting more or less on the day-to-day with small models trained, but that there's a mothership kind of updating them, keeping them up and working.
It's quite a challenge to keep everything afloat, which is why we talk a lot about what does your plan to deploy this technology look like? How do you orchestrate this? How do you start thinking long-term about using bigger, very powerful models and then use a lot of smaller models to handle very specific tasks?
Yeah. I'm really excited to have you in this chair because I think you probably see a lot deeper into how generative AI is being used than a lot of people. Particularly amongst creatives, there's some misperceptions sometimes that about what AI is and how it's used, what generative AI is. There's some ethical concerns like on the surface, and I know Anthropic is interested in those types of things, but would you just talk a little bit about like how you see creative people using these generative models in terms of some of the things that interest you the most?
That's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. My wife is a creative. My family, I have a lot of creatives. So I see it as a tool that empowers you. It allows you to, first of all, if you're a little bit like me, who's a little bit creative shy, it gets you past that white page syndrome where you can talk to a model and get out of your headspace and think about creative approaches to an idea or a problem.
Yeah.
I also think that what it'll do is it gives smaller independent creatives the ability to create art forms and artwork at the scale of a much bigger budget production. So I'm very excited to see the next generation of content that gets created.
Absolutely. And yet there's these other things that we keep our eyes on and we try to improve over time, and stuff. So talk to me also about some of the risks or threats you see to creatives kind of around the generative AI world. Job loss is obviously one that's on everybody's mind. A lot of these tools do things at a very high level and people are wondering, is this coming for my job? To what extent do I need to integrate generative AI into my workflows and pipelines at my design studio or photography studio, things like that?
My approach has always been to talk about this tool as something that augments us, augments capabilities, and that allows us to do more and be more productive.
But that doesn't speak to the thing that I said, though. Don't you think that it's going to cause some impacts within the creative industries around jobs and stuff?
To be quite frank, I don't think I'm the best person to answer that question.
Oh, that's fair enough. I think that here in BC, we live in a really tightly integrated digital economy where we've got these schools that feed a lot of like special effects, animators, illustrators, graphics people stuff, up into like these studios locally, both gaming studios and then like special effects, film and digital stuff, and I don't know, I'm just tracking it really closely because a lot of the scene here in Vancouver, a lot of the people who live in these apartments and stuff, they work for the big studios, big game companies or whatever. And, AI is making inroads in these areas. And clearly, like I'm a photographer, I'm very excited about AI. I'm not trying to take this in a negative direction, but I'm just saying that it's there are pros and cons, and I'm looking out to the creative community and trying to listen to hear what their concerns are and stuff. And so, like in Vancouver, I'm trying to spread the tools and the knowledge such that the impacts can maybe be somewhat mitigated if they are like a strong reverberation within our creative community and stuff. But
I think that's great, and I would just encourage people not to be afraid.
Yeah.
I would encourage exploration, and a lot of the concerns that you addressed do need to be considered around a responsible AI framework, so we shouldn't ignore these things. But if you're asking my personal opinion, I think that this is just another new creative outlet.
Yeah.
That said, my specialty isn't in media, so I'm a little bit limited in what I can say.
Hey, well, not to beat a dead horse, but I actually see the other side of it as well. So a lot of these jobs, those ones that I mentioned, didn't even exist 30 years ago. Like UX designer, special effects creator, 3D modeler, a lot of those jobs didn't even exist, And so one of the things I'm most excited about this Gen AI stuff as it relates to the creative industries is like, yo, everybody, we haven't even seen what the next wave of professions is going to be that comes out of this whole new world we live in.
Yeah, like I said, I think it democratizes access to creativity. I'm personally not someone who's really good at drawing, and so I'm really excited to have a different outlet to express my creativity.
I have smashed through so many like ceilings as it comes to my own creativity and productivity and stuff. Like I'm sort of technical. I can build like web pages and CSS, JavaScript and stuff like that, but I hadn't really learned how to set up like virtual environments or deploy servers and stuff like that. And using, some of the Gen AI tools, I've been able to like pretty much figure out the things I didn't know how to do before and smash. So yeah, definitely making me feel.
It's freeing, isn't it?
It's empowering. I feel powerful, so to speak or whatever, right? All right. So what are some of your favorite cool tools you're messing with right now?
I think my favorite one is going to be Claude for Enterprise.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of ChatGPT, but from Anthropic.
Mm-hmm.
I like to play around with some of the image generation models. Midjourney was my go-to.
Yeah.
I'm
a Claude user. I'm a Claude Pro user. I've set up some of the projects in there and tinkered with them a bit. And so like, I'm kind of familiar with that.
Yeah.
I have artifacts on. They're amazing and stuff. But what's Claude Enterprise? I haven't seen that yet.
It's essentially the same thing as Claude for AI, but for as an enterprise user, essentially. So if you're a worker of a big company and you want to have access to these tools, Claude for Enterprise gives you the same capabilities as Claude for AI,
Incredible.
but for your work.
On the back end, does this train data that the company then has access to? Like, can it kind of like learn the company over time?
I think that I'd have to defer to Anthropic for that because it hasn't been released in Canada yet, so I don't have the details.
Yeah,
on
fair enough. That's funny actually to bring up, but we do get second access to a lot of tools. Google just released the ability to talk to your Google Photos, through LLMs or through Gemini or whatever. And I've got like 250,000 photos in my Google Photos that, from 20 years of photography. I'm so excited to get in there and actually be able to like ask my data set questions, figure out what's there and interact with it on that level or whatever.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And I think we're just seeing the tip of what's possible right now.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what comes next.
You said Midjourney. So tell me a little bit about what you did in Midjourney, but then I also want to know like your favorite like prompts or hacks for your Midjourney prompts.
So my use case was pretty straightforward. I've got a few nephews and they wanted to create a Dragon Balls comic book.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took pictures of them, I got them to use different poses, and then we trained Midjourney to essentially create little Dragon Ball avatars of my nephews. And then we just prompted scenes from Dragon Ball. So it was really more of a creative outlet, teaching them a little bit about this technology, and just having fun with them.
I love, like I'm always like looking at some of these techniques in terms of like beginner, intermediate, advanced, or whatever. Because when we all sit down in front of AIs, we do certain things for the first time, and as our understanding increases, the depth of what we can do becomes more powerful. And so like, you said something quick and subtle, but it's a pretty big deal. So you started with photos from your phone of your nephews.
Yeah.
You brought them into Midjourney, and you used describe function.
Yeah, so
describe is my favorite command in Midjourney, dude.
So I use these functions. I think the main thing that I did, because since I deal with so much technology, I can't remember all the functions by memory.
Yeah.
So I just take all the documentation from Midjourney, and then I upload it to Claude, and I ask Claude to create the prompts on my behalf.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier instead of you having to remember every single command.
I mean, I do a very similar thing. Anytime I need to learn a new tool, like I just started using Meta Creation Labs tool called AutoLoom.
Oh, wow.
And it's complicated, and it's some of it's like a command line and stuff. And so when the professor gave me the tool and the access, he's like, here's our documentation. And when you're reading through the documentation, if you don't mind making notes of the things, of places you think we're missing or there are gaps or whatever. And I was like, bro, you're an AI professor. You should know that's not a good job for a human. So I took all the documentation, dropped it into a Claude project, and now I'm like asking it questions back and forth while I'm sitting there at the computer. I have a custom GPT made of it too, so I can talk to my phone and have it coach me while I'm using the tool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a cool use of it, man. All right, let's rattle off a couple other cool tools you're using. You messed with any of the video stuff yet?
I haven't. I tried, you know what? I looked at Runway ML. I was excited to give it a go.
Yeah.
I've just run out of time. But I think that
it's fun to take your Midjourney Dragon Balls and bring them to life in Runway. That's kind of what I'm doing, is I'm doing generations in Midjourney and bringing them into Runway and doing 10-second little clips and stuff. And,
I'd love to have a bit more time to explore what that looks like. But yeah, Runway and then I'd like to get time to play with something around audio creation as well.
Oh yeah, I've tinkered with like Udio and Suno. Those ones are pretty fun. I have one buddy, we don't send each other voicemails anymore. We like make little 30-second songs and send them back and forth, which is pretty.
Oh, that's fun.
Actually, Ender was here. My buddy Ender and I, we do rap battles back and forth, just to entertain ourselves.
Wow, cool.
Diss tracks and stuff
there
like
that.
There we go.
I love it.
Yeah, really cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate you spending time with me here. Is there anything else you want to share or talk about, or any key things from your talk you just want to share with the world before you go?
I think the main guidance I'd like to have is to just encourage people to explore, to not be afraid of it. As you heard from my introduction, originally I didn't work in AI, I worked in telecommunications for most of my life.
Right.
And so making the pivot, adopting this technology, feeling comfortable in using it and feeling empowered, it's not that difficult.
Yeah. I think that because it's so much in the news and it seems like it's all around us all the time, that it might seem like it's saturated or the time is behind us or something like that. But I was reading this writer, Jacob Nielsen. He's like, he kind of is a forefather of the UX UI industry back in the early 2000s. And he had this handwritten note in there from back in the day, and it was like, in the first year of UI, UX being a profession, there was about 1,000 required full-timers.
Yeah.
In the second year, it was 10,000. In the third year, it was 100,000 UI, UX consultants and advisors and things. And then it just kind of went infinite after that, and now we know they're all around us or whatever.
Of course.
So it's probably not too late to start to figure these things out, adopt to them, bring them into your workflows, and
it's early.
Yeah.
As someone that works with this every single day, I would say it's still very early.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kris Krug from AWS Community Days, over and out.